Welcome to Unlocked, the podcast of the century today with Mr. Wayne Callaghan. I have known Wayne for many, many years, but I'm going to leave the start of the story to Wayne because it's epic.
Yeah, so we've probably known each other 20 years?
It's got to be about 20 years, but this is very odd for me because obviously this should really be the other way around.
Yeah, I feel like last time we were in this situation, Matt, it was the other way around, and we were in a police station at Southend. I'm PC Callaghan. You're in an interview room at Southend Police Station. This is being video recorded, so you can later be stitched up.
Yes, thank you for that. So let's explain to whoever's watching today, right? You were, and no longer are, but you were armed response, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And when we met,
yep.
you were horrible. No. You was a PC, basically,
yeah,
and you tried to arrest me.
When we met, that was my first ever shift, first ever duty.
Should we talk about that? Or do you want
if you want,
Go on, start with your first shift.
That's where the journey starts.
Start with the journey, the first shift.
I was a special constable, which means, for those who don't know, it's a copper who doesn't get paid, and they do it voluntarily.
Who does that? Who does that?
It's a route in,
right,
as a career. So, it's worth investing 6 months of your time, and they can go, this is a good old boy, or this person's a bit of a clown, they're never going to go any further. So at 18 and a half years old, it was like a good route in to try and get in. So it was my first shift at Southend, and I was with a guy called Paul Chesney, and he was like the other end of the scale. It was probably like his last shift before he was due to retire.
Was he one of the non-paid as well?
No, so he was a regular. He'd been a dog handler, and he'd he was towards the end of his career. So they're like, we'll stick the new guy with the old guy.
So you could learn.
Yeah.
Was he a fan of me, or
I don't know if he even knew you. Or
I just wanted to check that before we went any further.
I don't know if he even knew you. I mean, there was some people who knew of you, obviously, but that comes later on in the journey. So we're foot patrol, Southend High Street, and we get a call to a large fight in. Am I right talking about this?
Yeah, go for it.
Large fight in the car park at Talk nightclub. I mean, I think it's mentioned in your book anyway.
What's the book called?
Tracksuit Millionaire.
Who wrote it?
You. Are they going to make a film?
They are going to make a film.
We'll come back to that.
We'll come back to that later as well. But
we're jumping.
Yeah.
So large fight. My first ever shift, my first ever duty, and I was like, it's on. Cameras are saying, right. There's some activity behind a car. They're putting something in the car. Someone was sparked out on the ground or something like that. And they're coming.
Try not to laugh. Sorry.
There's, I think it was 5. There's 5 of them, and they're coming around the corner of the Royals. There's a unit there, and I'm like, yeah, this is me. And then obviously you and I think 4 of your mates, or 4 or 5 of your mates walk round the corner, and I just remember I was like this skinny 18-and-a-half-year-old, and I just remember looking at these. Am I allowed to swear?
You could say what you want.
I was thinking there's these fucking beasts walking around the corner. I mean, like, you were like had muscle on muscle. I even remember to this day you were wearing a white t-shirt, and I was like, fucking hell, what was I going to do? And then there was like 4 others who were all equally as fucking big, and like was the same age, but I was like, these are fucking fully grown men.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do here? I remember going, right, use lot up against there was like a bus shelter, right, use lot up against the bus shelter now. And everybody sort of looked at me, and there was like that moment's pause. And then all of a sudden, everybody jumped up against the bus shelter, and I was like, looked at me, like, fucking hell, I felt like Superman. I was like, wow, is this the career I've entered? And I was like, felt so powerful. And then as I turned around to see the copper I was with, this Chesney, as I turned around to as a child to a dad, what next? I turned around and realised that a dog unit or 2 dog units had pulled up and opened up the boots of their car, and I now realise that everybody jumping up against the thing was because these
of the fucking dogs.
2 dog units turning up. Yeah, so that's how we met. Yeah,
it was bad, absolutely bad. And I'd just like, for the record, I got let off, didn't I? It wasn't me. It weren't me. And do you know what's even funny about that story? Is they were searching us all you guys were searching us, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
And I just had a run, like I just imported weapons. So I had my car keys because I remember specifically like, who put the stuff in the car, because a lot of the guys that I was with had put weapons into the car. I had the fucking car keys, but I hadn't stopped. I'd come from wherever to bring the weapons into the country, and then I'd parked it in the car park. So I'd lobbed the fucking car keys in a bush.
That's right, yeah, because we couldn't find
because no one could find the car keys.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if they get them, I am fucked.
Yeah, we couldn't find the car keys. And I remember reading it in your book.
Yeah.
And like, for anyone who thinks, oh, what a load of nonsense, like how it's portrayed in the book is, from my perspective, exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
The CCTV, the car, we couldn't find the keys and ended up going. So for that period of time, you were obviously under arrest whilst we conducted our search.
While the dogs were there anyway.
Yeah.
No other reason.
And then,
just to make that clear.
Yeah.
But
so that's how we met.
And then I didn't see or hear from you at all. Obviously, I never thought I would bump into you again, and then we did. I'll let you tell the story, because again. So
yeah, I mean, we sort of bumped into each other a couple of times after that. So that night, so when I was at school and college and that, I was just a pretty much middle of the road kid. I didn't stand out. I wasn't super athletic, but I wasn't a super geek either. I just kept myself to myself, and I could mix with the sort of wrong end of the spectrum and the right end of the spectrum. Do you know what I mean? And after that incident, I thought, I'm going to have to hit the gym. So
you've seen us, and you now want to go gym.
Yeah, and I thought, no, I'm not having this again. So there was a.
So we inspired you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a gym at the police station. So that night it was like, I'm going to that gym, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I went in there, and that was the start of my journey. I just started lifting weights, totally incorrectly, but that's where sort of my sort of journey, if you want, in life began. And of course, being from the specials, I then joined the regulars.
Yeah.
So I went off. So I've had no other interaction with you at this point. I've then gone off to join the regulars. I ended up doing 14 weeks at training school. They had a gym there. There was all the people living their life were getting with each other and banging each other and going out, and I was just in the gym. At the end of training school, which was you went away for that at a place called Ashford. When I come back, I had to do another couple of weeks at Chelmsford before they let you out on the streets as a regular. And there was another life-changing sort of scenario, if you like, which sort of defined how I was going to be as a police officer. It was a training scenario, and it was a guy in a house and a domestic sort of situation to deal with, and obviously all the role players are police officers and stuff. And to cut a sort of long, boring story short, I've paired up with somebody, and there's another pair. They've gone in to arrest this guy in this scenario, and they've come back out and they've gone, he's fucking huge, Wayne. And I'm like, what? I was like, give me the cuffs, I'll go in and I'll nick him, because I'd done about 10 minutes in the gym by now. I felt like
isn't it amazing? As soon as you start the gym, mentally you just feel like Incredible Hulk, no matter what weight, if you're doing weights from that
makes you. But I think if you're doing anything, if you're running, if you're training MMA, if you're doing anything, it makes you feel better. So I've gone in there, and these cuffs, they're like the metal quick cuffs, like rigid cuffs, right. But where you got the bit that sort of goes round the wrist is sort of loose. So I knew it was a training scenario. I knew I couldn't get hurt, but this geezer, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a sergeant on the firearms unit. So they'd obviously taken him off the firearms unit for the day to be this role player. He had muscle, and the adrenaline, I couldn't help it. I started shaking, and the cuffs started rattling. And as they're rattling, he was like, "You're scared, boy, you're scared." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And I said this to him. I said, "Yeah, I am scared, but that fear is going to put adrenaline in my body, and it's going to go either one way. I'm either going to fight or flight." Yeah. And I'm still standing here. Yeah. So you're coming with me. Yeah. And again, I think that sort of shaped my career, because he was an influential sergeant on the firearms unit, and I think he thought, this little lad's got a little something about him. Do you know what I mean? He was willing to have a go. Anyway, arrested him, and whatever in this scenario, and X. Then I was put out on the streets as a regular copper, sent back to Southend. So that would be probably where we're sort of our paths crossed again, possibly. Yeah, yeah.
Which, if I remember rightly, was you pulled me over. Do you remember that? You pulled me over, and I was like, I had no fucking clue. This monster comes to my door, and I'm thinking, right, I've got nothing in the car, and I know I'm good, so what the fuck does he want? And you were like, oh, sorry, if in my memory serves, you were like, don't remember me, do you? And I was just like, who the fuck is this geezer? He was massive.
So your name, if you like, was sort of known within the area for whatever activities you were up to. So I wouldn't say I was stalking you, but I was sort of I had my eye on you anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know what you want me to say or not say, but obviously
be open. This is an open podcast, isn't it?
The academy gym, you're quite active in there.
Yeah.
I was going in the academy gym.
That's when Ange owned it, wasn't it?
Yeah. Along with other sort of gyms, and I wanted to sort of immerse myself in the environment of being big. You know what I mean? I wanted to be a huge bodybuilder. I wanted to be intimidating, and my career was heading that way. So I think you were driving a BMW at the time.
Yeah, 5 Series.
Yeah. So obviously I don't know if I ran your registration through the system and it come back as you, or whether I'd seen you drive. But I thought I'd stop you just to start to sort of try and build that not connection in a weird way, but just to, I know who you are, you need to start knowing who I am, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So so then I pulled you over, and obviously I've been training at that point and trying to eat correctly.
You were like quadruple the size. I didn't have a fucking clue. I was like,
yeah.
And you were like, do you not remember me? I was like, I got a fucking clue, mate. And I was thinking, where the fuck is this going?
Yeah.
But it actually led on to more. Well, it was a friendship. It became a friendship, and which, you know, is unusual, but not unheard of.
I mean, I remember coming to your house for one of your kids' birthday parties.
Yeah.
Then when you had a bungalow down London Road.
Yeah. With a donkey. Is that the one where I bought the donkey in?
I don't know if it was I can't remember a donkey. Yeah.
Fucking donkey.
I don't think it was that one. And obviously seeing you in the gym, you sort of helped me with supplements and like protein powders. And
can we talk about the supplements?
Yeah, talk about what you want, mate. I've got nothing to hide on.
Okay. Well, look, at the end of the day, you're out the force now. But the reality was there was steroids floating around everywhere.
There was, yeah.
I took them.
Yep.
You took them.
Yep.
There was plenty of other people that took them.
Plenty of police officers that took them.
I mean, I can't comment on that other than what I put in the book, which was I used to see armed response units coming in to a very good friend of mine and watching them buy it, and I'm like, as a kid, 18, 19 myself, like gobsmacked, like what the fuck? And
it's rife within the police force.
Would you say it's still rife? Or
I don't know, because I've been out for a long time. I would probably say it is. Obviously, although I rejoined, we'll probably get onto that, but although I rejoined later on, it's rife within, and I can see the reasons behind it, because like we were saying, they are dealing with some tough people, and you want that edge. If you're dealing with someone who's pissed up and coked up and angry.
I mean, what better to throw in the mix an angry copper as well? Do you know what I mean?
That'll solve the problem.
That'll solve everything.
But I think I took them through fear.
Okay.
So I started to develop this bit of a reputation. Oh, so-and-so, I remember a job in Lee, so-and-so, he's a world champion kickboxer. Wayne, can you go with him to go? And so I started to build this reputation. So two things. I had fear of failure. So fear that I'd start to build this reputation. I'd go there and I wouldn't be able to deliver what I thought at the time was expected of me. And I was scared of getting hurt. I was dealing with these. I'd lived a very, very, not sheltered life, but, you know, a very protected life in the fact that my parents were still together. I'd never witnessed any domestic violence. I'd seen my mates have a couple of punch-ups, but nothing completely over the top. I've been involved in a couple. I won some, I lost some, but I never was like put in hospital or anything like that. And I was really, really scared of getting hurt. Really scared of reputational damage and getting hurt. So I thought, what can I do to give me that edge? I'm benching as much as I can, but the guy next to me is benching more. And there's, you know, that guy next to me who's benching more, he's also a doorman, and I know he's involved in the underworld a little bit. And if I have to go up against him, I'm going to lose. And everybody I'm working with has put me on this pedestal to go, right, yeah, he's an angry, dangerous man. You go arrest him. So
thanks very much.
It was, yeah. So it was
There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So I'd never done any drugs whatsoever. No recreational drugs, not even smoked cannabis as a kid. I just wasn't interested. But there was sort of like no hesitation about sort of, because I saw it as like performance enhancing. It was going to enhance my performance. But there's also a lot of negative side effects as well.
Mental health,
hugely.
It's tough. It is tough. I think we both experienced mental health, whether it's a side effect of that or you know, just in general. But I
think it's a byproduct, Matt, in the fact that by taking steroids, it gave me the best opportunities within my career. It opened some doors because of the way I looked and the way I was willing to get involved. I was the first man through the door. I was, you know, the last person to go home. I was building this sort of personal empire, if you like. So it gave me some great things, but them great things were also the worst things as well. But at the time, I didn't really see any.
It's almost like, because it's a fake. It is a supplement. It's a fake thing. So it gives you that fake appearance, So if you start building on that fakeness, when it comes crumbling down, so does the facade, right?
Yeah.
That comes along with it, and then you are still left with you, and then you've got to try and manage all the stuff that you've accomplished that's now defeating you. Do you get what I'm saying? For me, that's how I started to feel at the end of my career. It was exactly that. I was just like, I couldn't keep up the persona anymore. I wanted to be me. It was easier just to be me.
But everybody expects you to be Matt Bray, the criminal gangster who's, you know, gonna get what's the word I'm looking for? You know, when you going to retaliate to somebody who's wronged you, and like you say, it's hard to maintain that.
Mentally, it's hard to manage it. Because I still experience it now, even being over 15 years legit. I can't shake it off. And I think people will always test you because they think, well, fuck it, it's all right. But actually, it takes, for me, the way I have to look at it now is it takes more of being a man and strength, showing a true strength, not reacting, because it is ingrained in me to do all these things. But ultimately, I have such a target on my back from the police, even today, that someone can ring them up and say, I don't know, I've just seen him swing a cat and throw it to the moon. They'll just write it down. Won't nick me, but they'll just write it down. And then, you know, that affects me in so many different ways. And you know, like, people will always expect me to, they'll just believe anything. Like, my reputation, you can believe anything. But actually, it's bullshit. But it's very hard to manage when you are legit, when you're not full of steroids, when you can't retaliate anymore, or you don't want to retaliate anymore. So building a persona and then watching that fall down, that's the tough. For me, that was a massive hurdle to get over, and still is today. Like, I don't know about you, but mine's massively tough to get over.
So just on that, and I don't want to sort of divert off because I feel like our conversation's going somewhere, and if we sort of bring it back to this point, I just want to say you said about, you know, if something happens, you still feel like you've got a target on your back with the police and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
but I think, to be honest, we both know that for a fact.
So missing a huge chunk of my life, and sort of fast forward into sort of relatively the present day. We've recently been subject to a special guardianship order, which means we've taken custody of a child that's not biologically ours.
Is that adoption or is that?
So it's like an adoption,
But
it's just called it's called a special guardianship order,
Right.
and you have sort of full parental rights for the child, but you haven't adopted, so the child will keep their sort of birth surname,
Okay.
and their first name. Any sort of decisions in relation to religion, you'd still have to engage with the birth parents. And if you took the child out of the country for more than 30 days, you'd have to speak to the birth parents. Other than that, school, everything else, we've got full parental responsibility like our 3 other children.
Okay.
So when I was going through that process, it was a hugely intrusive process. Social services got involved, and I'm fortunate enough, like you said, for 15 years, for the last decade, I have made far better choices than I have historically, and I can be honest and open about everything now because I've got nothing to hide. Where before, I'd have to be careful. I can't let my wife know this and that person know that because I wasn't making the best choices. So social services revisited the whole history of my police career and come up with reports and stuff like this. Right back in 2007, you allegedly, and I'm looking at this going, no, that didn't happen like that. You know, yeah, it happened, and I use it as an example, like this in this podcast. There's different cameras in the room, so the camera over there sees something different to the camera over there.
Yeah.
The conversation we're having is still the same conversation.
Yeah.
We're still doing the same thing. And I use the example of Prince William, the famous photograph where he's holding up 3 fingers. And it looks like he's giving the middle finger.
Yeah.
So he's holding up the 3 fingers. So it looks like he's giving the middle finger.
Yeah.
But if there wasn't another camera at a different angle that shows him actually showing 3 fingers, it puts him in a bad light.
Yeah.
And I feel like the police are corrupt, 100% corrupt. I don't feel like they're all intentionally corrupt. I think, you know, there's a lot of unintentional corruption, and people might watch and go, well, what is he going on about? But because of that, you're being told of this perspective. Yeah. Matt is a weapons dealing, steroid supplying gangster of Essex. People who don't know you from that different perspective go, oh yeah, he's a bad man. And again, this reverts round to in the gym. I'm looking at people thinking he's a bad man. If I have to take him on, I'm in trouble. But actually, getting to know you, well, you were a family man. You were actually going to work to earn money for your family, to provide for your family, to do what's morally best. Because I'm sitting there looking at it from the police perspective.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
Yeah,
you know, if I was looking at it from your gangster friend perspective, I'd be going, yeah, he's doing well for himself. If I was looking at it from the member of the public perspective, I'll be like, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's all different perspectives, mate. And I know I've gone off on a tangent there.
No.
Just...
But you're right. No, because it helps everyone understand. Like, and I think they'll agree. I don't think they'll disagree. But I think with its opinions as well was there's so much more to it. And ultimately, my goal wasn't ever, I never woke up and was like, I want to be a villain, I want to be a gangster, I want a name. I never did that. I wasn't interested. But I loved the fucking game. Like, I loved it. I loved being, it was weird. I loved the chase of the old bill.
Yeah.
I loved being able to do what I want when I wanted, and I still live by that today. But morally, my morals have changed. You know, my values are different. But everything I did do back then was just a product of my environment, and also I wanted to be legit. Basically, I was a businessman from 17.
Yep.
I just didn't have the right people around me to create a legitimate business. A lot of the legitimate businesses I had, they could have been. Well, I mean, you've got like number plate. I know I dealt in number plates and gyms and supplements and this and that. All the legitimate stuff could have been huge if I had guidance or the right people around me. And I just didn't have that. Not in the area I grew up in. So that's where I guess people's perspective of me can be whatever. But the problem is, like you said, 3 different views. If there ain't one pointing in the right direction with the correct view that you want to portray, you're fucked.
Yeah,
You've got to just defend yourself all the time. And with what you said with the police, obviously I can't really go into my stuff, but the target is very much still there.
Yeah,
without
I can
a doubt.
believe it. I can believe it. Yeah,
I think because I think we've touched on this before. You've personally experienced being out with other people in the force that have said, I ain't got a clue who he is, and then
So I mean, again, it's mentioned in your book, and anyone who reads your book who goes, "No, I did that," I'm like, trust me, I was there for certain points of it, and this is exactly how it went down from my perspective. I remember I was on a plainclothes team, and I have to be very careful what I say because, even though it's 15 years ago,
probably 20 now,
20 years ago,
take,
I've still signed the Official Secrets Act, and I've got to be sort of very careful. But so I was obviously monitoring your lifestyle, not necessarily through the police systems, but just attending the gym. Oh, he's in this car now, he's living this, and some of it from my perspective was a little bit of jealousy, because
thanks for sharing.
No, I
get it.
Because you had this physique, and it was an impressive physique, and I wanted to obtain a similar sort of physique, and there was probably people looking at me thinking, I just want to get like him, and again, the similarities between the criminals and the police, I think, aren't that far apart.
No.
The thrill of the chase, you would like a police chase. I'd like a police chase from a police officer's perspective. The excitement and the buzz from it. But I just felt I was like on the right side of, and I was protected because I was doing the right thing. Again, that perspective of doing the right thing, and there's another story that I can come on to about that. But so I'm fully aware of who you are, not necessarily through your criminal activities, but more through the sporting activities and that. And a little bit jealous. You've got nice cars, and you're clearly doing well financially. And we're driving, and I'm not even going to say the location. I'm on a plainclothes team, and I can remember I was sitting in the back. There was three of us, and I look over and I clock you because I know what you look like through the fact that I know you from the gym, not because there's any police briefings or intelligence. There's actually, very limited sort of accessible information on you. And the person I'm with, who's never ever seen you before in their life, allegedly, but they've got connections to certain offices within the police station, go, that's that Matt Bray. And I remember thinking, how do you know that? I know that because of, I'm going to the same gym as him, and people I'm frequenting with are saying, "Oh, that's Matt. If you want to get some good quality protein, go see Matt." Blah blah blah. So I'm thinking, how do you know that? There's no way that I know of as to how you'd know that. And so I challenge him on it, and I go, "Is it? How do you know?" And he goes, "Oh, just by the way he's walking." We're in a public place, like how I've just got a feeling. I think he said, I've just got a feeling, and I was like, you've just got a feeling. And then he sort of finished the conversation with like something along the lines of, "Don't worry, we're going to get him at some point." And I just thought, and again, that was a bit of a turning point for me because I'm again from that perspective of a police officer. Well, if we're going to get him, let's get him for something he's doing wrong. Bad people join the police to help old ladies across the road and to catch bad guys. Let's get him for doing something bad. Let's not just say we're going to get him because he's him. You know what I mean? And for me that was again a point in my sort of career where I started questioning the ethics. And again, this is where I talk about the corruption within the police, because I feel like the police are told from the ivory tower, this is the right thing to do it. So people feel like they're doing the right thing and they're not allowed to think for themselves. Because I'm thinking, why don't we catch some paedophiles? Why don't we catch a man who's, if he's just beat his wife to a pulp, let's go through the door and show him who the men are and take him into custody. I'm not talking about using excessive force, but just, let's deal with the bullies.
Of course.
He's just walking down the street minding his own business.
Walking with dog, probably.
You're walking with a bird. But,
Thanks, mate.
Why don't we catch a bad person? Now, I'm not saying you weren't a bad person, but it was like we're going to go for him just because. What is the just because?
Yeah.
And I feel like the officers on the streets nowadays don't really know the just because.
No.
They're, and I looked at COVID. Now, I wasn't in the police during COVID, but my perspective on COVID would have been completely different if I was in the police, because they're being told, you cannot have more than 3 people, you can't travel, you can't do this. Well, what about my nan who needs some care and I'm going to have to get on public transport to do that? But because you're told, no, that's the right thing, you sort of just naturally, oh, okay, they're like sheep.
And not only that, it's very dangerous when you've got sheep that have their own agenda.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm aware, you guys are told not to have your own agenda, not to have this, not to have that. Yeah. But actually human nature doesn't allow that, because you know what I find funny is, from my own experience, being interviewed as a suspect and a victim by the same person, the fucking role they play is like unreal. 1 minute they're like, oh, it's okay. Yeah. Then the next minute, like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean?
And they can have an influence on how they spin the story, 100%, because inadvertently I used to do it. I could, to the Crown Prosecution Service, provide certain information and word it in such a way that, so I'll give you an example, okay? Again, with sort of coming into the modern day, recently I competed in a real low level mixed martial arts cage fight. Now I won that. It was up against a complete flannel to the point where I remember being in there thinking, I can't even punch this guy. I'm going to have to take him down and submit him, because it's not in me to be violent to someone who doesn't warrant it. And he's.
But he's in the cage with
you. Yeah, he is. But this is the thing. This is the thing. It's a cage fight for charity for kids with cancer.
Oh wow!
Right? Okay. So how can I could quite easily have ruined this guy. Yeah. But I can't, because that's not in me. So I'm gonna take him to the ground. I'm gonna submit him. He's not gonna get overly hurt. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna, be the champion. Now, if I was arrested and the police, say for like a violent offence, the police could. That video's on YouTube. Yep. The police could portray that to the CPS. He's a mixed martial arts cage fighter. Oh my God, what a violent man. Or they could say, actually, the guy does some charity work for kids with cancer. Oh, what a nice guy he is.
The spin's different.
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same thing, but it's how they play the spin. Now, if they liked me, they'd go, oh, he's willing to get his face smashed in for kids with cancer. If they don't like me, they'd go, he's a dangerous man. So
and that is it. 100%. That's exactly that is, to be honest, that is the best example I've ever heard. That is absolutely bang on. What was it like? Because you went from being on the street and in clothes playing, whatever, to becoming armed response. What was that like? That must have been fucking some experience. Just the training alone, wasn't it?
So I remember thinking to myself, so some of my friends, and nowadays they call me Ant Middleton from Temu. Right. So Ant Middleton from the SAS and Temu, obviously the cheap Chinese place like that. So they take a piss. So I felt like I was joining the SAS, mate. Right. When I got a yes for it, I felt like, wow, this is like once in a lifetime opportunity. Like I don't even care if I don't pass the course. But the fact that I'm going to get to fire guns in this country, I'm just going to be happy with that. Yeah. But I put absolutely everything into it. Like nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered other than passing that course. So I passed the course and got sent to like the Central Armed Response Team. And I mean, mate, I've got stories, and I've got like absolutely amazing. The best time, no, it's not the best time in my life. It's one of the best experiences of my life. Again, coming off the back of the fact that I was always willing to go through the door first, the fact that I didn't look like I look now, I had muscles, I was, known for being sort of up for it and dynamic. So it sort of led me to that path, But now I'm at the bottom of the pile of a relatively small group of people where I was sort of top of the tree on division, you know, using for that. Now I'm at the bottom, and
this is the armed response
yeah,
team. Yes,
yeah.
You feel like you're at the bottom because you got to work your way up.
Yeah,
in
and
respect, I guess.
Yeah, work my way up to the top again. You know, which again I managed to do quite quickly and become what's known as a operational firearms commander now, but it was what was known as a bronze commander.
Right.
So basically, you are answerable to no one other than the silver commander and gold. Gold commander is the chief constable. Silver commander is like some inspector in the control room, and then it's you. So if there's an armed deployment, you are in charge. You're in charge of all the blokes or girls. You're in charge of the whole team. Silver will say, "I want Matt arrested, and I want a hard arm stop put on him," and then I'll be the one to go, right, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to be lead car, you're going to box him in, we're going to do that, and then we'll implement it. And it was, you said earlier, like a game. It was like, it just felt like a real life game, mate. I felt invincible. I felt untouchable. And that went to my head a little bit.
Do you think you ever abuse your power?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Not in the way people think.
No. I wasn't. I don't want people to judge you for it. It was just like it's common. That's what I'm saying. It's common because it's a power trip, right? You get, quite rightly, it's like a enhancement, isn't it?
But not in the way people think. Not for me anyway. Mm-hmm. So how I abuse my power is, it gave me again this false confidence, right? So I was wearing all this black kit. I had a gun on my thigh. You know, I was in the nighttime economy in Southend where women are queuing up for clubs, and it would give me this confidence to talk to them and speak to them, and this is who I am. And now, if you took all that off of me, if I was, a window cleaner in my shorts and my flip-flops, I wouldn't have had that confidence, I wouldn't have had that power. But it felt like it gave me that power. So for individuals like we talk about, like Wayne Callaghan and stuff like that, who have done possibly some atrocious things to women, they're probably not of the same mindset of me, but that's how that power has affected them, you know?
Right, yeah.
And I feel like, so I never...
There is a lot of experiments they do where they get these people to walk down the same corridor, one as the cleaner and two as the CEO of the company.
Yeah.
It's fucking powerful. These people, their whole demeanour. Yeah, so I get it. I can relate to it, and hopefully these guys can relate to it too.
So I don't think I was really a bully. No. I was never, but again, the power of, well, I'm doing the right thing. So, you know, I mean, I give another example of a minor who needed arresting for an assault. Now, this child that needed arrested had special needs, and they were like, right, arrest him, bring him in, he's got to come in. And I'm sitting there thinking, this person this is potentially going to affect him for the rest of his life if we do this. Do we actually need to do this? You know, is it the right thing to do? And I feel like the abuse of the power for the majority of people, and there probably are some exceptions, is unintentional. You know, I'm going to pull you over because I can, you know, not because you've got a tail light out or anything like that, you know. So I never sort of went over the top or anything like that, or did anything that I shouldn't have done. There might have been situations where, looking back, I was a little bit more robust than what I would be now. But that's because I've learned and I've calmed down and I've humbled myself. And some of the experiences in life has humbled me as well. But, yeah.
Do you think that... I really want to ask you this question because I've been thinking about it so much because of so many different experiences that I've had.
Yeah.
Do you think there should be a psychiatric evaluation of anyone joining the police? Like a proper, full-on, intensive. I know it'd be expensive. I know it'd be costly to them. That's not the point.
We'd have no police officers.
I agree. Because there is good ones. I know there's a good one because I'm with one. So she's the best police officer I've ever met. the way she conducts herself, like, you know, inside and outside of work, you know. So I know there is people trying to, like, good people trying to do good things with it. But, but majority fucking need evaluating.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because for example, I think I told you this, I didn't say this. I got pulled over for no seatbelt. I'm exempt from wearing my seatbelt, yeah? So this absolute fucking piss-taking prick went, all right, cool, I'm going to drug test you then. To me, abuse of power. To me, again, as much as I do everything in my power to refrain from interacting with them in any means, I lose my shit. Because sometimes I fucking get fed up with it. Because I'm like, you're just like, if you abuse your power, you're a fucking bully. You're a fucking bully, I want to destroy you. So then I get out of hand, and then everything I say, but they don't do anything about that person abusing the power. They then form more intelligence against me to go, well, he's done it. But again, perspective, so he abused his power.
I'm not going to justify him because he might have been a complete sausage, and he probably was, because 90% of them. 90% but it's again, it goes sort of back to that perspective where he might have a reputation for giving a ticket out. If he's a traffic officer, he might have that reputation for giving a ticket out to every single person he comes across, you know. And now he feels like he's got to uphold that reputation. He's come across somebody who's challenging him a little bit, and he's scared. He's not necessarily scared of the physical confrontation, but he's scared of the, well, where do I go with this?
Well, I'll be honest, I did ask him to take his uniform off, come fight me properly over there, because he was taking a piss, and I weren't letting it go. I was like, you're an absolute fucking melt, mate. Yeah. Take your uniform off, let's go over there. And he wouldn't, he just kept going on the legal. But that is my point. That's why I think they should be evaluated, because if me being exempt from wearing a seatbelt isn't enough, and you can't just go, yeah, that's fine. If you've got it in you, you've got to find something. Come on, you need fucking help, right?
But I feel like people who could turn around and go, sorry, mate, I didn't realise you were exempt. I saw you without the seatbelt. Obviously, it's my job as a copper to make sure people wear seatbelts. Yeah. But people don't have that ability anymore.
So ego takes over, especially in the male. It's
embarrassment as well, you know. So that runs parallel with the ego. Is embarrassed, don't know what to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with something else because I'm going to win. So, well, I'll do you for a drugs test. Well, okay, well, if you try and do me for a drugs test, I'm going to fight you. Right, well, I'm going to get 3 other units down here, and then we're going to, you know what I mean? And it just escalates. Rather. So historically, you know, someone cut me up when I'm driving, you know, like a prat, you know what I mean? I'll be like, I'm the police, you know what I mean? This is my badge, you're a bad driver. Well, have I never been a bad driver? Yeah. Even as a police officer, have I never cut somebody up or done something wrong? But I feel righteous to tell you I am the law and you're a bad driver. Yeah. But I've done it myself. Whereas now, you know, since leaving the police, I'd wind my window down and I go, listen, mate, don't let my bad driving ruin your day. Even if I'm the one who's right. Yeah. You know, but people don't have that ability anymore. No. But I didn't have that ability back then, Matt. Yeah. You know, it's only now. If I was, you know, and I did rejoin the police for a period of time recently, but it's only now that through the life experiences. So we're criticising these young police officers for, you know, having this ego. Well, I was that young police officer with the ego. You know, now people who I dealt with before, and again, this is like that abuse of power. Now people wouldn't recognise me. They go, "Well, what a completely different person." Now I'd be a fantastic police officer.
Do you want to be a police officer?
No. But I'd be a fantastic police officer because I made mistakes. Yeah. There was times when I was a fantastic police officer. There was times when I was a shit police officer. Yeah. But it was them mistakes that would make me fucking amazing now. But because I've made them mistakes and because I'd be fucking amazing now, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? So it's
your character changes, your perspective changes, and then, you know, like you start looking at careers and now you're in something phenomenal. In my opinion, obviously I don't know the ins and outs of everything, but...
Well, ask whatever you want, I'll tell you whatever you want.
It's brilliant. You're in surveillance.
Surveillance, yeah.
Which is, so to have all the background you have and be able to apply that, do you live and breathe it? Because from what I know of you, you get involved.
Yeah.
You don't fuck around. Like
No.
anything you do, you're all in.
I'm the best at whatever. If I was going to be collecting chicken eggs, I'd be the best chicken egg collector I could be.
You
know
are
what I mean? Yeah.
like laser focused in anything, even with the riding the bikes.
Yeah.
That I'm going to change this. So next thing you know, there's videos, literally that's what I get from you, and that's what I love about you so much is you give it 1,000,000%. Like if there could be a spectrum of 100 to 1,000,000, you're the million.
I try to be. Yeah.
Yeah, you do, and so.
Coming out of the police, I sort of bounced around a load of different sort of close protection jobs, security jobs and that, and I was like, what am I doing? So I thought, what could I do that gives me the same satisfaction as the armed response used to give me? You know, what out there in the civilian world? So I started to get involved in surveillance because basically it's what I used to do before, just with a gun, and we didn't have to worry about getting footage. Now I've swapped the gun for a camera. So I'm just following people all day doing private investigations. You know, they say you own a business and say you own a bar and a member of your bar staff slips over and then tries suing you, saying, "Oh, you should have had a wet floor sign down," but then they're out refereeing football on
playing.
Yeah,
even worse.
Yeah. then I'm the guy who's obtaining the evidence of that to go back to you and go, but that could go either way. I could come back to you and go, no, look, this geezer is actually in a bad way, you know, or actually he's taking a piss. Or if you think your partner's cheating on you,
watch out.
Yeah.
If you see him behind you, it could be onto you.
So Whiskey Charlie.
Go for it.
www.whiskeycharlie.co.uk. I'm there, but what I've realised, Matt, is I just work on my own. You know, I might work with others if a client instructs more than one person, but I can't be accountable for other people's actions anymore.
Right.
Again, go back to the firearms days where you got a property and you colour code the property. So the front of the property is known as white side, the back of the property is black side. Sent a team round black side. On white side, I'm the bronze commander, so I'm in charge. They completely fucked it up, did stuff they shouldn't have done. It all come out in the wash, and then I'm being held accountable for it. And I'm like, I'm not even round there. I don't even know. Yeah, but you're ultimately in charge. Yeah, but I don't know they're doing stuff they shouldn't because I'm not there. So now I just operate on my own.
Yeah.
Just.
So if we can, let's go back a little bit. Yeah. So one of the things, actually, let's talk about my book just for a quick sec because it's quite funny because obviously I was taken to court for my book,
Okay.
Because it's very controversial. Mm-hmm. It's the fucking pretty much bang on the truth in every scenario. Let's keep it slightly fictional, should we say, just in case.
I think
Majority is fictional. 99.9% fictional. But I was taken to court. And do you remember I contacted you and I said to you, listen, this is what is being said, that I basically put your name in my book without permission and the story you would not be happy with.
I was fine with you,
Yeah. And I remember saying to you, are you all right if I give the judge your phone number just so he can call you and go, did you know about being in the book? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So even the book just calls me out. That's why it's not really being pushed at the minute. I had to change the cover because my son was on the front of it. It was the whole thing was a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you. But in there, and you can verify this or not, from what I remember back in the day that I owned the gym, you got very targeted for being friendly with me. You're like within your work, and I remember us having a conversation in the gym. You come down to see me and you said that basically you'd been all in, asked about me, asked about steroids, blah, blah, blah. And they ended up doing you for not having the notebook. It's like they just used this scenario to try and get information out of you because of this, basically befriending me or us being friends to get you out of there. Is that...
So there's you and others So my wife at the time, from a travelling family, so obviously the associated people in that fraternity, yourself and a few others, they speak to you about one thing, but then they'll try and get you on something totally unrelated. And I remember being spoken to about certain things, and I remember thinking, you're way off. You're absolutely way off. You're this is what's happening. This is what you think's happening. You know, this is my. And I'm probably here. I probably don't know fully what's happening, but I know a little bit. But you're nowhere near it. But they just ran with that, and I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not worried about what you know. I'm worried about what you don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it got to the point where I thought, you know what, it's time for me to leave.
Yeah.
Not because I'd done anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. The things I had done wrong were quite minor, you know. So I sort of said, look, if I hand my notice in and leave, does this all go away? And they'd never admit to it because, you know, they could potentially get in trouble for it. But they pretty much said, well, if you go, it's not in the public interest anymore because you're not a police officer. So I was like, there's me notice there, and then wrote it out, there's me notice, I'm out of here. So contrary to popular belief, I was never sacked. I was never, there was investigations into me, and I'm looking at these investigations. These are nonsense, absolute nonsense. But I am worried about what you don't know. So, and I'm not saying that's anything. You know, I wasn't dealing drugs, or I was doing, but there is not a single person out there, not a single person that has not done something wrong.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
absolutely.
There's career police officers who I've sat next to in the old riot vans who were seen at the time to be absolute do-gooders, and then towards their end of the career, they get arrested for having child porn on their phone.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
And I think I would never have known that. I'd never have suspected that.
Yeah.
Right? You're portrayed potentially a totally different image to me. You were the person who would sit down and talk to people before going hands-on, and oh yeah, you're a bad guy, but let me get you some water, and so there was no one out there, even the people who investigate the police who investigate the police. I know for a fact there's groups out there of ex-police officers who have sort of got this vendetta against the people who investigate. Look, they're just doing their job like we were doing ours, but they've got dirt on them. They've slept with the wrong person in the office. Do you know what I mean? They don't want their wife to find out. Yeah. They've done things they shouldn't have done. They just haven't been caught for it. So I was thinking, I've done things wrong. You know, not horrendous humdingers that I'm like. And it's nice now that I live a life where I don't have to worry because I'm truly honest. And when I say I've done things wrong, I mean things like I've cheated on my wife. Yeah.
Not my current
wife. But I've cheated on my wife. And if they dig deep enough, they're going to find out that I've cheated on my wife.
If they want to find something, they'll find something.
No, they'll find what...
Well, they want to find.
Yeah, they'll find their version of
narrative.
it. They'll find their version of it. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm thinking, I've cheated on my wife. If she finds out, that's my life completely fucked. I'm going to lose my job and I'm going to lose my wife. Yeah. So I'm going to go now before they start. That's the sort of stuff I'm talking about of them finding out. But yeah, if they want to find out, I don't think they find the complete truth ever.
Yeah.
You know, they find
whatever works for them.
But I do believe majority of them honestly think that is the truth. Yeah. That's the...
Yeah, because you're conditioned, right? You're coached and conditioned into thinking that way. And what's funny is I have so many friends that are ex-police now that come to me for fucking work.
Yeah.
That come to me for, how do I do this? How do I build an empire? How do I I want to do this because that was a disaster and I didn't realise it at the time, but now I see it and I'm just like, wow. Because it is just a game of cat and mouse. So getting back to your story it wasn't, at the minute it sounds like it was just a call. All of this is just cool, right?
Yeah.
But actually, there's a period in your life where you got very depressed, mental health, which I would like to say majority of us men do suffer, and we don't talk about it enough. And I think it's a big deal. So if you're all right, we're talking about that.
So
and how you got out of it.
So now we're looking at the time in my life where I'm not at that bottom of the pile in the firearms world anymore. I've rapidly got myself to the top. And the way I've done that is by the only way I know. You know what I mean? Enhancing what, so I was bang on some gear, mate. Loads of gear. I was in bodybuilding contests and stuff. And I was doing all right. I wasn't like a pro or anything like that. But I was taking a lot. That was affecting my mental health. I was more interested in going to the gym than work. I was getting attention from the opposite sex. I was living what I thought was my best life. Financially started to struggle a little bit because I'd miss the overtime shift to go to the gym, or I'd buy some chicken, protein and steroids because it was more important to me than the car payment, you know. So what is now the best time of my life is slowly becoming the worst time of my life, but I'm putting that negativity to one side. So again, this is around the time where it all come to a head, and I get pulled in this time over a statement, and the wording in the statement is being questioned. So I haven't actually done anything other than witness an event, and the way I've worded it in relation to the way I've witnessed it, and this is all coming at the same time with the questions about who I know and what I know, and, you know, like gyms in the police are a bad thing. Police officers have got to train in their own station gym. You can't frequent with other people, you know. So all this is coming at one point. So that's me now out the job. And I remember, like, literally it happened as quick as that. And then I'm standing, they said, right, what's yours, what's ours? This is our kit, that's your kit. There you go, off you go. Sent me out like I'd left custody, basically. And I was at Basildon Police Station, and I walked out and I looked up at the car park, and I looked at it and I thought, no, that's not tall enough. All that's going to do is hurt and make my problems worse.
So you was literally committing, thinking about committing suicide.
So I looked at it and I think if it had been a taller car park, who knows how that would have turned out. But I remember looking at it and thinking, that's just going to cause me more pain because I'm going to break my legs and my spine, but I'm still going to be alive. So I went home, and that's where things just went fucking awful, mate. So I didn't have my job. Obviously, there was some questions about different women or a woman, and I tried to cover everything up, sweep it under the carpet. I started working nightclub doors, which might as well still be on the firearms team. You know what I mean? So yeah, this continued. Got a couple of kids, and I'm thinking this is just, I can't see no light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And things come to like I say a penultimate, but it wasn't actually quite over. But me and my wife at the time split up. I moved back to my sister's house. You know, I'm living out of bags at my sister's. I've got a shit job where I'm being paid minimum wage, and then I met my new partner. Now, this level of depression, you think now my life is started to. I remember, you know, hardly had any clothes and stuff like that. I remember her saying to me, "Right, come on, I've got a job as like a private store detective and that, and I was like, I need some decent clothes, like, so she'll go to Tesco's, and it seems really minor now. It was Valentine's Day, and I can't even remember what brand it was, but it was like some branded T-shirts. They were like 39, 40 quid, but she got me them, and I felt terrible because all I could afford was to get her a KFC on Valentine's Day, and I'm thinking this is going sideways. She ain't going to hang around with me because I'm a dickhead. But slowly as I declined, I started to incline, but it was so slow and gradual that I didn't realise I was on the incline.
Yeah.
But just by making different choices where I was sort of guided by her, if you like, and I call her my guardian angel, because if I'd never have met her, I think I'd either be dead or in prison, or because all I could see was me living this shit life. And the incline was so gradual that all of a sudden I turn, not all of a sudden, but at some point I turn around and go, wow, I'm not where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had passed the cloud.
Yeah, I'm not where I was, but I didn't realise that I was coming out of it, you know, but it was only by the people around me. My own strength as well. Stopping the steroids was a big thing. And it was only by coming out of it that I've sort of changed my life around, really, you know. And now I look back and go, well, I wouldn't know what I know now and have them experiences, you know. Like there's points when I was in the same room as the SAS, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't have had that experience if I hadn't jabbed a load of steroids in my arse, been robust going through the front door, chasing bad people and pulling them out of cars and stuff.
Yeah.
I would never have had that. I look back now and go, yeah, I'm glad I had that, but the best times were also my worst times.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't want to go and revisit that. But it's not like I made a sort of a conscious effort. It was just meeting the right person at the right time who was... And in all honesty, I don't know how she stayed with me. The first 2 years, I was fucking horrendous, mate. I was horrendous. Questioning where she was going, what she was doing, so needy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And screaming and shouting and
was you still on steroids at that point?
I struggled to it's an addiction.
Yeah.
I struggled to come off of them, and I sought some sort of professional help, and the professional help helped, but the biggest help was her.
Yeah.
And we, she said, look, you got 2 kids. I want to have a kid, and you're the one who's got to deliver it to me. And I was like, right, yeah. So I went to the doctors, and they're like, mate, I'm surprised you're not a woman. You have no sperm at all. And I was like, oh fuck. So I thought I've got to do something. So I've got to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to lose her.
Yeah.
And then if I lose her, I'm going to then start declining again, because she's the one who's... So the trying for our daughter was what made me have to stop. And then once I stopped, it was all right. But I still have to be careful that I don't hang around certain people in certain places, because I was in a gym a little while ago, some young lad benching some dumbbells, and I looked across and I thought, yeah, I used to do that. Yeah, I could do that. And if I'm not careful, I'll go, well, how do I do that?
It's a nice thought.
Yeah,
When the thought enters your head, like I have it all the time. I just think, oh, do you know what? A little bit of test won't hurt.
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s now, so I'm allowed it.
Yeah,
but actually, I have to stay under my doctor, because the reality is, you just get to a point, once it fucks with your head, for me personally, I would say once it fucked with my head, it fucked with my head. That's it. There's no going back now. There's I don't want all the muscle in the world. I'm quite happy in my 40s, in shape. I'm good. I think you just got to be content with where you're at, right?
So what I say now is, before I had like this athletic armed response type, used to get T-shirts sort of size too small for me and stuff like that, you know. Now I've got a father figure. You know what I mean? I now see, although I had kids in that stage, they're now teenage boys and stuff.
Yep.
You know, a father figure. If a father figure means don't take steroids, then that's what a father figure's got to be. You know what I mean? So
because they've got to look up to you and aspire to be like you. And I think any kind of drug is is a danger.
Yeah.
It's dangerous territory.
Yeah.
Because if you like it, you're fucked. If you get addicted to it, you're fucked.
Takes over you. I think any addiction, any
of
addiction,
course, yeah,
you know,
yeah. Because it's a good feel, it's a good feel factor, but that drops off. I remember seeing this brilliant. Tom Hanks says it. He's like sitting around a table like Robert De Niro and that, and he's like, "You feel good, it shall pass.
Yeah.
You feel bad, it shall pass. You have money, it shall pass." Like everything has its cycle, and I think that it's for me reaching 40, not even thinking I was gonna. If I'm honest with you, I think you probably agree with the chances of that happening for me were slim. And then getting to see other people, but that's why I now coach, so people can get out of.
And I think it's important to have that third party, and again I talk about perspectives, that third party perspective. So earlier when I was talking about the police having this perspective, an individual having this perspective, a third party, and that's where I was with my current partner, that was that third party perspective, you know, that outside influence that can relate and understand to where you are, but can also see the other side and go, but look, you need to be over here. So we can. So with your coaching, you're like that third party perspective for people to go, look, this is what I've done through my experiences. You don't have to experience the same harshness because I can help you and find you.
You can navigate.
And that's important, having that third party. I don't believe anybody can do it alone.
No, I agree. I think without a community around you, you isolate, you're fucked. I think you can really struggle.
Whether that's that third party is your partner, I'd say 9 times out of 10 it isn't. You know, I spent a large majority of my life with a woman who I look back now and I think it wasn't her. If I'd been with my current partner in them times, she would have been treated exactly the same. So it wasn't the individual, it was the circumstances. But I sometimes think I'm fortunate that my partner's that good third party coach. Your friends tend to tell you what makes you happy. So they're probably not the best. Sometimes you need that impartial person as a coach,
or a best friend, one that will stick it on you,
who'll tell you the truth. But you know that third party person who can detach themselves and look at like from that bird's eye view and give guidance is what's important, I think.
So you came out of that, and to end this on a nice positive note, you ended up joining. You're going to have to explain it because I know you've told me a million times. I still don't get it. For me, I just see you. It looked like you were on Richard Branson's island. And I'm thinking, what the fuck?
Pretty much was. So,
I don't like the police. I'm not a fan, but I'll join just so I can do what you just did.
Mate. So I've got to be really careful what I say about this place. But so basically, part of my journey and part of my rehabilitation, if you like, was I left the police prematurely, not when I wanted to, but because it was the right thing to do at the time. And now I've evolved into a better person. I'm like, that chapter's still open for me. You know what I mean? I want to rejoin as that better person, you know. So an opportunity come up to deploy as a police officer in a remote island called Diego Garcia, which is in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Like, it is tiny in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it's basically a US air base or US Navy and air base, which is owned by Britain, and the US rent it off of us. And the closest thing I can describe is it's like Area 51, allegedly. If you Google it, so recently, before coming on this podcast, I received a formal notification saying, listen, punk, just remember you signed the Official Secrets Act. I was like, okay, right.
Just a heads up.
So I've got to bear that in mind. So anything I tell you, you can find on open source media anyway, or Google or whatever. There's allegations made by tinfoil wearing hat people that Malaysian airline that went missing is ended up there. There's a CIA black site where terrorists are interrogated and stuff like that. All I can say is the beach there is fucking amazing and beautiful.
And I'm going to jump in here, right? And I can verify this. 100% none of that shit's there because there's turtles. I see him swimming with turtles.
Yeah.
There was. Are you on a fucking surfboard?
Yeah.
There was absolutely no fucking police work being done whatsoever.
No.
You were just wearing the outfit.
So pretty much that's what happened. So gone there. So this fantastic opportunity come up where we need experienced police officers over there. So I submitted my CV. And funny, what happened is about 3 or 4 people sent me the job advert, and I was like, no, I'm never going to get it. Like all the experience of going through with social services, like all that being dragged up was like, they're going to drag up my past, and it's going to be absolutely horrendous. And so they're like, just submit your CV. And 4 people, and I thought, God's telling me something here, you know what I mean? So I was like, right, yeah. So I submitted it, and they rang me straight up, and I spoke to them about my situation and everything. They're like, yeah, no, we'll get you on the next flight. So, yeah, so I went over there. So there's basically, you got the US over there, like the army, and they got their sort of police contingent. You got the UK military police over there, and then you had us, a bunch of civilians.
Mad.
Yeah,
Absolutely
doing paddleboarding, eating loads of food and barbecues on the beach.
Basically.
So I was over there for 3 months, and then there was the opportunity to stay. But I was thinking about my surveillance business. I was thinking I'm going to start.
About your wife and kids.
Yeah. And so my partner was so supportive because she was like, you need to go because I need you to close that door. So she was supportive of me going, and I come back after 3 months. They did ask me to stay, but I was like, I've got, and this is where my perspective has changed, because before, if that was in the police, I was so dedicated that I would have been like, no, I'm staying. Fuck yous lot. I'm staying. Yeah. So that's where I realised I'd changed as a person. Yeah. Some good things happened to me over there. Obviously, just found religion. It was the most peaceful place in the world, and I got talking to some like an American minister over there, and he sort of swayed me a little bit to make the effort. So I've come back from that a better person, with that door of wanting to be a police officer closed. Not interested in it anymore. Not interested. The realisation of my family being important and putting them before me. So I brought that away from there. I earned well out of it, so I brought that away. So a lot of positives come out of it, but it's sort of, again, they're like the time arresting you, like the trainer who was a complete meathead. It's an experience that has now shaped the future as to where I'm going. You know what I mean? Because opportunities to deploy elsewhere overseas, I'm now looking at and going, no thanks, because my family are more important, spending time with them, you know. So again, this is the beginning. And although I'm 40 or 43 and I think, well, I'm an old has-been now, it's a
new chapter.
Yeah, I'm understanding that what's happening now is the shape of the next 20 years. You know?
Got you. So, which I think is a great ending for the podcast. I think we should leave it there. And maybe have you back on later on.
Love to, there's lots more we can still talk about. But
exactly. Just scratch the surface.
Now's not the time.
I think anyone that's interested in a lot of what's gone on and what we've spoken about, and I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's my show and I can.
Okay.
You should buy my book, Tracksuit Millionaire. It's on Amazon.
or if they want to know more about surveillance, check out my website, www.whiskeycharlie.co.uk. I just want to say, Matt, Whiskey Charlie is my initials. It's not my drink and drug of choice.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because that's steroids and water.
All right, well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
really
mate.
appreciate it,
Thank
mate.
you.
And subscribe. Click the links below for the book and the channel on YouTube, and you can watch the whole episode for me and Wayne, which I thought was amazing. I hope you do too. Wayne?
Good seeing you, mate.
Nice one, mate. Thank you very much.